All right, here we are. How you doing, Darren?
Doing good, Joe. How about you?
Good, good. We've had a busy week. By the way, welcome to Los Angeles Real Estate Reality, your live stream with Darren and Joe over at Urban Hillsides Real Estate. But yeah, just reflecting back on the last week, it's been a busy week. It's been a good week, hasn't it, Darren?
Sure, it has. We've been looking at a lot of properties and
Yeah,
writing offers. Yeah,
a lot of buyers.
yeah,
Got one win, at least for now, with an accepted offer in Long Beach, a condo for Steve and Arena. So hopefully that inspection went well today, Darren.
it did. Yeah, condos are typically pretty easy inspections, particularly if they're newer. So
Good.
yeah, went fine.
Right on. So, guys, just to get it out of the way, wanted to give you the disclaimer as we start talking about real estate and new listings and things going on in the market that we've seen over the last week. So let me get this done and over with. All right. So Darren Hubert and Joe Cloninger are real estate agents at Keller Williams Los Feliz under the Urban Hillsides brand. All opinions expressed by Urban Hillsides or guests on this video are solely their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Keller Williams Los Feliz. You should not treat any opinion expressed by Urban Hillsides as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy, but only as an expression of Urban Hillsides team's opinions. This video is for informational purposes only. So there you go. All right. Darren, as I search around and figure out things to talk about, I wanted to congratulate you and the team, which is you and me at this point, for some awards. The year ends, brokerages look at what agents have done, and they give us an attaboy. So one is third highest units for a team in 2020, and then the other is second highest GCI for a team in 2020. So GCI is gross commission income, and thanks for these awards, Keller Williams Los Feliz. Good
Yeah,
job,
thank
man.
you, thank you for everyone who chose to work with us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really
Really, I
good.
guess
Thank you, guys.
you know what, you make the right point. Yeah, there's us as Urban Hillsides, but yeah, the other part of that team is the clients for sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so let's see. We wanted to talk about. Let's see, the idea of buyers, right? The trend, the observation for us is we've been working with a lot of buyers this past week. We've had some wins, we've had some losses, we've been busy out there. But, Darren, you brought it up this morning. You wanted to talk about buyers and really the craziness of the market, and it seems to always be this way, is how do buyers get that edge to get an accepted offer? It starts there, but really, you got to get accepted first. So, I know you made a couple points, and I guess the number one thing here is number one, who will close? You want to
Right.
talk about that?
Sure. I mean, if I'm to frame it to start the conversation, it ends up being about, all the prep. It's like so much probably in life. There are those who can show up and just be amazing. Unfortunately, I don't feel I'm one of those people. So it's very much about preparing and, presenting the best you can in that moment.
Yes.
And that equals ultimately, and we'll go through the details of that. The collection of that equals, who will close, because you look like you've got things together and you're presented and you're thinking about all the options, and so that's super important.
Yeah, yeah. And I think with number one, what you're saying is from the listing agent standpoint, the seller standpoint, if they've got 5 offers or more, yeah, that's their first question most of the time with any good agent. They're asking who's going to close, who's
Right.
got the highest likelihood.
Right. And so to break it down then,
Mm,
if we go to number two,
Yep.
It obviously the most obvious, but it's not the only thing, and that's the biggest thing we want to drive home for so
Yeah.
many buyers. But you have to either have the best price or close to it.
Right.
So it does start there, but it filters down from there. We've won offers. People get acceptance when they're not the highest price. It
Yeah.
happens. It's
Yeah.
not. There is a certain margin, or maybe there's some other incentives from a seller, but more often than not, it's the highest price.
Yep.
But then it goes back to the who will close. Sometimes when you can win an offer when you're not the highest price, it does mean you have a lot of other things that make the agent and the seller believe that you're more likely to close. You're not going to play any games. You're going to get through things and you're going to close. And they'd rather just take that route and a little less money than the headache of jumping into escrow with somebody who might not close, because it's usually a step back at that point.
Well, that's the thing, right? Of course, it's all about price, but you can't really make it that simple. We're going to go through a couple layers here that you really need to have together. The other thing is highest price and we have cash. Sounds great, but yeah, we're going to go through some items here that really make the difference as a total offer that makes sense, that gets accepted.
Sure.
So the next one that you wanted to mention was most properties these days are multiple offers. So we'll counter to equalize terms, not exactly, but very close.
Right. So some of the terms that won't be, they will equalize things similar to, well, who's going to pay escrow fees, who's going to pay title, how much they're going to pay for a home warranty. They'll kind of equalize all those in a multi-offer situation, but they can't equalize this person has 10% down and that person's paying cash. That's just something they can't counter. Those are two different components for two different buyers. So, and there are other terms like that. It's not just how much money you have, but there are some terms that people just aren't comfortable with. Somebody like a more really experienced buyer or an investor may be willing to write with no inspection contingency, whereas first-time home buyer just isn't willing to release that contingency. And
Right.
some of these things you just can't control, and as you always say, Joe, each person, each situation is customized, and you do the best you can with what you have. And then it's our job to just present what might look good, might look bad, might benefit you, might not, and then you do what you're comfortable with.
Yep. Yep. I think the other thing too here, and it's not on the notes that we made, but I think we'll touch on it with number 4. But all through this, it's about communication, and it's about sometimes the small clues and that camaraderie that you hope your agent has with the other agent in getting the deal done.
Right. It's true. Certainly, it's one of the reasons you end up choosing an agent is because you feel some similarities, some connections, some similar values. You feel like it's a good match for you. Or maybe they're the opposite and you feel you work well with opposites. Whatever the case may be, for the same reason you choose an agent can also have an impact on whether the other agent, leans into helping choose your offer. Because obviously we don't have direct dialogue with the seller when we're representing
Right.
a buyer. It's our dialogue is between agents. So we make an effort to try to have a connection. And look, the reality is, some agents don't want to connect at all. It's just a process and a system, and you're a number and deliver that number.
Yeah.
And then you just have to respond in that way. Often as agents, we are trying to mimic the behavior it's when you're on the buy side as an agent, you're adapting a little more to the listing agent's behavior because they're controlling the flow of the process and the delivery of the information you present to them, to their seller, and it's influenced by the agent. It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and when we're on the other end, people are trying to mimic us and engage on a level that we're familiar with.
So let's get to number 3. So the scenario now is close in price, lots to consider. So I'll just go through each step here. So one is contingency. There are three main contingencies. And is it a yes and no? And if it's for yes, how long? Go ahead and break that out.
So two of them are related to your loan, two contingencies, and there are a lot of smaller contingencies, but it always comes down to three main ones.
Yep.
Loan and appraisal. Although you can't present an offer without a pre-approval. You really should always start there before you even start looking at houses and have an understanding of payments. But there are some lenders that will take you through direct underwriting approval and further into the process. And they can also then move faster and shorten the contingency. And even in some cases, feel confident enough to say you don't need that contingency in the offer at all. So you can just remove it. You're absolutely qualified for the loan. So you can write an offer without it. That goes a long way.
I was going to say for those of you that are in the midst of making offers and you're actively out there as buyers, some of these things we're talking about might make more sense as opposed to some of you who might be a year out. We have a plan to actually do a buyer webinar that will break some more of this down. So stay tuned for that. We'll let you know. But contingencies. Okay. How do you adjust? Cool. Number 2, down payment amount.
So 2 more on the contingencies, Jeff.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. So then you have appraisal contingency. Now that's initiated by the lender. Sometimes, because of the environment we're in with the multi-counter offers, the price will go up and up. And what may seem like it's a concern of appraising. So there's a secondary component. A lender will only lend on the amount it appraises for. Now, if you're not in the business every day like we are, it's amazing how often the appraised value comes in exactly at list price or at your offer price. The appraiser knows what you've offered on price, and it's not as simple as they're just looking at real value. They're trying to make the number work. Now, if it's too far off and they can't make it work, then they can't. And the appraisal can come in low. So it's a contingency, and if there's a problem with that, then you can try to renegotiate or walk away from the offer. So all these contingencies do is allow for more research, more information to come, and if the information that comes is an issue, then it gives you an out with no penalty to you. You can walk away from the offer and get your deposit returned. And then the third contingency is inspection. And that's just, you're inspecting paperwork, history, information from the seller, an actual physical inspection of the property, often with multiple inspectors in different categories, and that can vary from property to property. The bottom line is on all of these, shorter or eliminating them helps your offer be more likely to be accepted.
Okay, so number 2, we talked about down payment amount.
Right. So you go from one extreme to the other. I think I haven't done a 3 or 3.5% offer in a long time. I think FHA is 3.5%. Yep. So from the smallest amount, 3.5, you can do VA no down. That also, it's out there. So you can go from 0 down all the way to a cash offer. So, and why that matters? When the down payment is less, the loans just seem to be scrutinized a little more. Although if you're pre-approved, you assume it should still go fine, the loan should be good. And if you're working with a really good lender, that should be the case. But if something was to go wrong, somebody with less down doesn't have the flexibility that somebody with more down. Like, for example, if you're doing 50% down and appraisal comes in low, it has no impact on you. You could still try to negotiate, but it doesn't change your loan. It doesn't have to change your price. But if you're doing 5% down and your appraisal comes in low, you have to come in to escrow with more cash or try to negotiate the price down. Your options, you don't have as many options, and you have to make an adjustment.
Got it. Okay. Number 3, full deposit, 3%.
Right. Most people, in most of the areas we work, and I find that it varies a little bit in different areas. but most people are just writing offers with 3% deposit. And where that number comes from is that there's a section in the contract under liquidated damages that says if you default, if you walk away after you've removed all contingencies and don't complete the sale, that they could pursue up to 3% of your deposit. So those numbers are always looking to align. Kind of holds the buyer's feet to the fire to make sure they perform or walk away if they can't within the timelines that they have.
Okay. And then number 4, we have seller choice on services.
Every now and then there's some agents, gosh, more often than I'd like to see. It just seems like a foolish move to me to try to, write into the contract, I want to use my own escrow company or my own title company. Look, it's a concession you have in a competitive environment. It's expected that the seller will get to choose these services. And most often, it has no impact on the price that you end up paying as a buyer.
Right.
And these services are supposed to be neutral, serve both parties equally, only act on what's in the contract. And for the most part, they do.
Yeah.
It's just, and the reason, like when we're representing a seller, we want to work with our people only because it's easier for us. We understand their systems, we understand how they communicate, everybody's a little different, and it just flows easier. And so that's kind of an industry standard, and giving them their choice of services is what we always write.
Right. Not really a negotiation point, just...
They'll counter it out.
Right.
A lot of these things, if they're off, they'll just counter them out.
And number 5 just leads to who pays what. Normal terms are accepted typically.
So there's things like, transfer taxes, title fees, escrow fees, who pays home warranty, who pays for retrofitting.
Yep.
The reality is most of this is paid by the seller. Not all of it, but most of it is. It's kind of been set up that way. There's the norms, and the norms don't have to be followed, but they typically are. That's why the norms. So the assumption is that, a buyer has less money and is buying a house and needs to pay loan fees and is just trying to get into the space, whereas the seller is selling their home and making some money from it. So it's been set up that a seller pays a lot of these fees, including the commission for both agents.
Right. Okay. And then leading into now number 4, professional presentation, expected follow-through.
Right. So, the way you present yourself, the way you follow up, the questions you ask an agent, the professionalism and how you engage and the timing of it all it's relevant. It sets the tone for what the agent will expect when you go into escrow. It sets the tone for whether they think you're going to follow through, whether you're going to play any games and you get into escrow. It's funny, we talk about, at times, again, this is kind of inside agent dialogue on some level here. If it's a local agent who does a lot of transactions and who's engaged and we are likely to see more often, we do everything we possibly can to maintain that level of professionalism. And, we do everything. When it's an agent, like, say, from Orange County listing a property here in Northeast, it's not that we're less professional. It's just that, we might push a little more. We might push a little harder to try to see if we can gain an edge in other ways. Whereas that might leave a bad energy or a bad vibe with a local agent who we'll encounter regularly.
Well, I think you hit on a really good thing because it goes both ways being a local agent, right? So, yeah, there's a reputation in the community of agents locally that overall, as a client, it should help you. We do tend to know each other. Whereas, yeah, if the Orange County agent is selling something here, maybe they don't care so much about their reputation or how they act.
True, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah, and it is a relationship-based business. We talk about things like, we like an example is we talk about our lenders a lot because they're such an important part of the process. And we say that not only are they accountable to you as a buyer, and this is one of the real reasons we like working with them, but they're going to go out of their way to perform for you, because if they do a bad job, it's not just your business they're going to lose. They're going to lose all the business we give them.
Yep.
So they're accountable to much more than just your individual transaction, and that really keeps them on their toes. And it's, those who are successful understand that dynamic.
And that's the thing, right? Yeah, carry this over to lenders, which we're about to get into. But yeah, internet lender or a local lender that has a lot of skin in the game. Internet lender, great rate maybe, but nobody knows them.
It happened today, Joe. Oh, God.
Yeah, there you go. Oh
Today.
Boy, another story.
Yeah, every day there's a story, right? So yeah, we're at the inspection, and the topic came up. Hey, so I've been shopping the rate. What? What are you talking about? We've been writing offers, and we're in escrow, and now you decide I'm going to shop a rate. And there's just, I want to respect the buyer, but I also like the people that get you somewhere. It's just things of, there's less loyalty today, and you should be people should do a good job. I don't question that. And if they're not, then fine. Loyalty is pushed to the side. But man, so these people got you there. Their pre-approval got you into escrow. We explained why we think they're a good choice to work with. They shorten the terms. And of course, if you go out there and make some phone calls, people will promise you the world. They have nothing to lose. They're not local. Of course I can do that, because they know as soon as you shift.
And somebody else has done my work already. So yeah.
All of it, man.
Yeah.
So,
I'm here to catch.
Educated them, laid the groundwork, got them the accepted offer. And of course they can offer a better rate. They've done nothing but pick up the phone and gotten, a sale. And they're not accountable. So, yeah, if it doesn't work out, oh well, hang up the phone and move on to the next person for them. But it's huge. Each purchase is such a big deal for the buyer, and we understand the gravity of that. So it's frustrating when they go that route, because if a buyer wants to start there, I would just say, fine, but it'd probably be harder to get your offer accepted, but that's fine. We'll choose to work with that. We still want to have a dialogue and a conversation with the lender.
Right.
We need to have a realistic timeline of when they can close and remove contingencies and all the above. And then we'll struggle with that. But that last minute, I can get an eighth point less from somebody online. It's really frustrating.
Yep. Well, so that leads us to number 5, which easily could have been number 1, right? Is choice of lender.
Yes. So, we did a video a while back on that, and there are a couple categories of lenders, and just to identify them quickly. First off, you want to ideally work with a direct lender. So what a direct lender means is a company who has their own funds to source the loan and to complete the loan. Now, the majority, not all, but the majority of loans then have a different servicer. The bigger banks tend to have a business model that has a big servicing division. And on the back end, a lot of people don't even understand this. They just think, I got the loan from B of A and I received my payment vouchers from B of A and they're my lender. But in reality, even those loans, it seems seamless, but even those are sold on a secondary market, and most of the time that servicer doesn't own the loan, they're just your servicer. So, but when you originate the loan, you want it to be from somebody who has their own funds to originate it. Because the other option is a mortgage broker who just shops the loan from multiple choices, often bigger banks or credit unions. And there's just an additional layer involved there that eliminates any edge you may have. And speed is a super important part of a choice of lender. I understand that it seems the most important thing is rate, and rate is important, but you have to go all the way back to the beginning on your offer has to get accepted.
Right.
So if you can't move fast, if you can't write shorter contingencies, which was our first item on option 2 after price, then your offer just won't be accepted. They'll move on.
Yeah.
So you need a certain type of lender just to get an acceptance. Those people who go out there and just continue to write offers and don't shorten contingencies and try to fight the system that just keep getting turned down. And it's our job to get you an acceptance.
And again, within the context of all this, this is hyper competitive LA market. These are the little things that make the difference. I don't know, maybe you're out on the panhandle in Texas and maybe it doesn't matter. And you can kind of go through by rote just the rules of engagement that everybody kind of knows. But may not work in a really hyper competitive market.
Yeah, no, it's true. And things don't have to be as tight in a slower market, in a market that's more balanced.
Okay, and then you put down here per diem, voluntarily.
Sure. So, look, we just wrote an offer that we sent off today, and we experienced this a couple times. So the lending industry is overwhelmed right now, right? We could talk all we want about how great our lender is and how well he'll perform, but obviously as agents, we get to realize over time people just say what they're going to say to get their offer accepted, and it doesn't always equal results. So I had been thinking about this because of a couple extensions we had where we had to elongate escrow, and it costs money. It costs the seller money to extend escrow, even if it's as simple as homeowners insurance and taxes. Taxes in California are super high on property taxes, but often it's a mortgage as well. It could cost a seller $2,000-$3,000 for a couple weeks extension, and the buyer's like, whatever, it's just it'll be done. But no, there is a loss of money if you don't close on time. So
you're still paying that mortgage.
Exactly. So they want some security, and I thought about putting it out on our listings, but then I've started seeing some of it more frequently on a response to offers we send out. So we just took it to the next level, and that we're confident in our lender that he'll do what he's going to say. We're putting money there to prove it by basically instituting a voluntary per diem, saying that if he doesn't perform, we'll just pay the per diem. You don't even have to counter us. We're just putting it out.
Again, it's just one more thing that might make him feel more confident. That's great.
Right.
And then the final thing you put down here was escalation clause.
Right. This is the cheat. It really is. And we don't use it a lot. Some listing agents just flat out won't accept it. If we use it, maybe we'll ask the agent first rather than just sending it. I remember when I first received an escalation clause, and let me explain what it is for those of you who may not understand it. Basically, as a buyer, you run into the conundrum. Most of the counter offers is you end up being blind. You don't know what the competition is. It's not like an open auction and you're just raising your hand because you know what the previous person offered. You don't know. You don't know on your first offer, and you also don't know when you're countering if you get into the counter process, and most often it's a best and final, which is a blind. They're not saying you have to hit a certain number. They're just saying give us your best offer. So an escalation clause tries to get you through that. It tries to put you in a position where you'll pay the most you're willing to, but not more than you have to. So the way it works is you basically say, let's say it's $1 million property. You'll say, I'm willing to beat any offer by $3,000 up to $1 million. So you set a cap and you set a margin, and that's why I call it the cheat, because they actually want it to be a blind situation often on the listing side, because some people will outbid themselves, and that's the biggest fear of a buyer, is to pay more when they don't have to.
Right.
But some listing agents will just say, no, we won't accept that. The one that gets me the most, when I get an escalation clause, I'll just say this because it's one of those little things that digs me, is like, if you're going to cheat that way and I accept it, don't say I'm going to beat an offer by $500. Honestly, I feel like I want to, the other person like put everything out on the table, and you're saying I'll beat them by $500. No, that's not enough. It's got to be, in my opinion, a couple thousand. I want to see somewhere between $2,000 to $5,000 that you're willing to beat an offer. Look, if you're willing to pay $1 million and you end up paying $950, is it really different if you paid $950 or $954?
Yeah.
You're not having to pay $1 million, so be happy, but don't just beat it by, relatively speaking, a few pennies.
Right. Well, and this will be my little add-on, because you're reminding me, but I think too, when we're in the position of multiple counter offers, and we're there and we're talking about best and final with someone, kind of the same idea, but for every 10,000 you go up, maybe it'll be $60 a month in terms of additional amount. So back to how much do you want this property, and keeping it in context, because of course 10,000 is a lot of money, but you've got to make it sensible for you. Are you going to lose it for that 10,000 or that 65 a month or 60 a month, or are you going to go for it? That's the other thing.
And we say exactly that when people get to that point, because we don't want them to pay more. Clearly we don't. You and I are both value seekers, and we want our clients to get value when they're, we're representing buyers. But, how much, what you're going to write the offer for, you have to feel comfortable to walk away and say, okay, I'm comfortable that I lost it because I wasn't willing to pay more than that amount.
Yep.
And then you can feel okay that you didn't get it. There's nothing. It's a horrible feeling to say, okay, I'm going to try to save $5,000, write the offer, and you don't get it, and you lose by $5,000. But really, you would have paid more.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
You almost don't want to know. You find out 30 days later, but you really don't want to know.
That's always the question, right? And I think that's a big signal there. The first question a buyer whose offer is rejected asks is, well, what number did they accept? And we don't have that number as agents. Another little inside thing. The reason they don't tell you is because they have contingencies on their offer.
Right.
And they need to navigate, and the offer could fall out. And they're not going to reveal that number until, if not until it's close, very close to it being closed.
Yep. Okay. Well, Darren, was there anything more to add about buyers at this point? Anything
No,
more?
I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I like
Guys,
it.
again, we'll have a separate webinar for this, but yeah, we covered a lot in a short amount of time. So good.